Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We're now on to delegations. And the first delegation, 4.1, is Cathy Brown from Texada Island. We're just calling her on the phone because there's been a technological issue with her.
Perhaps we can move on to the next one and see if we can correct that. In the meantime, I'll just message her.
Okay, is that okay with everyone? All right, seeing no argument there. All right, delegation 4.2, Gentner, Ellen, Gould, Bob Hackett, Drena, McCormick, Shirley Gentner for the Society for Public Power for Powell River. And are we, with the COVID rules permit only 3 at the table?
Yeah.
So 3 of you can join us here at the table. 2 is fine. Okay, I'd like to welcome you to our committee of the whole meeting and say that you have 10 minutes. You will see a timer on the screen, and I invite you to begin your presentation now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a few handouts. There was something sent to you and the board last week. However, this is a shorter view, and the one you received before was more or less just to the city. And this is a streamlined presentation, more relative to the needs of the regional district. When the Columbia River was dammed for electrical power, the clarion was sounded by Kootenai residents wanting to know what were the downstream benefits. Today, sustainable, resilient economies of hydroelectric power fostered the Columbia Basin Trust, an $88 million revenue gross stream per annum is awarded to the communities, First Nations, and regional districts in the area. The rationale was quite simple. We dam watersheds, destroy valleys, habitat, environment, and sell energy to markets elsewhere. There has to be a local return. In other words, a quid pro quo. Today, the Upper Sunshine Coast, we face a similar situation. My name is Gentner. I live in the district. I represent a new group, Public Power for Powell River. In a previous life, I was the vice chair of BC's Legislative Committee on Crown Corporations and Crown Agencies. And I was delighted to hear the boastful ways of my Kootenai colleagues who had a trust in place to look after their needs. Columbia Power shares 50% of its profits with the trust. The company operates, maintains, upgrade dams and power stations, including environmental stewardship. The trust, as I said in the appendix to all of you, gives you a rundown, just some of the programs that it entails. For just for the streamlined position right now, let's think about something called the qathet Watershed Trust. It is a conceptual model, but similar discussions regarding energy democracy are being held throughout the world. A concept to democratize the production and management of energy resources, including social ownership of energy infrastructure, decentralization of energy systems, ensuring local community resilience, and public participation in energy-related policy making. And with 2 major watersheds in play, one in Powell Lake, the other in Lois, all within the region's boundaries, providing hydropower for private interest. It's time to ask, what are the region's downstream benefits? We see a future of regionalizing energy in a new transparent water partnership with provincial help, working towards a new power utility, including the First Nations, the city, and the region. And we look at similar models, such as the 51% public purchase of Lanita, once privately held by Cominco and Trail. What's good for the Kootenays should be good for us in the region. Here, talks are already underway, I believe, among the 3 administrators to discuss the future of energy in the region. We need leadership in order to ensure greater local representation, for the public at large rather than for offshore private interests. The district needs a subject matter expert to help with a plan to find synergies to establish downstream benefits. The attempted sale of electricity by Powell River Energy Inc. to the U.S. markets became the catalyst of our group's formation. The pulp and paper mill closure, the long-standing argument of community benefits with the mill's high unemployment and huge multipliers due to hydroelectric power no longer applies. Relevant to the 21st century, what are the local benefits today by selling electricity to the grid and foreign markets? The PREI appealed to the BC Utilities Commissions to sell power to U.S. markets, but as we know, it pulled its appeal. So it can sell power through its affiliates, and nothing precludes the company to reapply to the BCUC. PREI's existence depends on two rivers, an extensive watersheds that incorporates 2,500 square kilometers. Last week, my colleague Gould made a presentation to the city. Today, I want to focus on the district. Of the 80 to 85 megawatts produced by PREI, 37 megawatts are produced at Lois Lake, Eagle River Power Stations. Now, I want to address your area COCP. I'm a resident of that area. And the open policy is to, quote, foster sustainability, protecting the environment, ensuring a sustainable resource base for future generations, on page 3. The question before you, how does the selling of electrical power to foreign markets ensure a sustainable resource base for future generations? And there's also a policy that's a little ironic, that whereby PREI is selling energy through the grid to its affiliates and to foreign markets, but the OCP ascribes to, quote, locally generated off-grid renewable energy as a main source of electricity for Powell River, and the impacts in generation, transmission, and distribution on the ecosystem are minimized. Now, the policy sounds laudable, but while PRE is making 100% profit by selling electricity due to our watershed, our ordinary citizens are expected to create their own off-grid energy. The closest policy found in the OCP regarding Lois Lake is, quote, the regional district will request the province when considering proposals for development in the planning area to, quote, weigh the short-term economic gain against the long-term economic, social, and environmental impacts, unquote. In both Area A and C's OCPs, quote, the regional district supports the sustainable use and management of land designated resource for long-term public, social, economic, and environmental benefits of the region, unquote. According to your and my own OCP, the district has a fiduciary responsibility to ask the question, what are the downstream benefits of all of this damming in our region? In conclusion, I want to leave you with the image of Powell River. It's the first page I gave to you. It's a fascinating, beautiful river its day before it was privatized and dammed. The Clahaman have a name for it, Keaton. Maybe that should be the name of our trust. For without the river, there would be no power. Between the Fraser and the Skeena rivers, Keaton and the Eagle River were two of the most prolific salmon-bearing rivers on the west coast of the mainland. But the OCP recognizes river importance. Policy 2.5.4.2 says, whereby there should be, quote, sufficient water flows to the Lois River at all times to support the reestablishment of salmon stocks in the river, unquote. And the subsequent section states the regional district will liaise to work with the province, the feds, and First Nations in order to investigate the feasibility of restoring the Lois River as a, quote, viable salmon-bearing river. That's part of your OCP. The damming and flooding not only extinguished First Nations, their fisheries and habitat, ecologies and whole biospheres were destroyed beyond belief, but also wiped out farm-producing valleys and restricted the area's capacity for sustainability. Now, you look at the power of that water in that photo, the life it gave and compared it to today, destroyed and controlled by a private interest, housed in Bermuda, with assets worth $1.2 trillion, attempting to do what it is meant to do, make profit for its shareholders. But the real shareholders are those in this room and the first peoples who lost everything. We are here to ask not only what are the downstream benefits to our communities, your region, but what you are prepared to do. On a final note, you will notice the last item in the package that I sent you. It's about the water license. It defines the original intent of the use of power from those dams. Section D in the conditional water license. Water to be produced for power is to be done so for the use, exclusive use of pulp and paper use only. And the use for otherwise, in my terms and my beliefs, is in violation of the permits. In other words, the marketing of power to the grid is in violation to the original agreement. And for those wishing to conduct discussions and leveraging other uses for the power within Section 21 lands are in violation to the original intent of the license and the compromise of our watershed for exclusivity, the use to make power for the mill.
Hey, Guy, I'm going to interrupt you right there because we are over the 10 minutes.
Thank you. I'm done.
You're concluding your presentation?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much. I will ask directors if there are any questions. Mr. Gentner, Director Brander.
Thanks, Chair. First, I want to say thanks very much for coming in. It's quite an interesting concept about community benefiting from the sale of electricity by a local producer. I hope at some point we're going to get to hear a presentation from the other side for Power Over Energy, just to get a balanced approach to it. The report I thought was really interesting. It caused me to do some research into the Columbia Basin Trust. And please correct me, anybody, if I've got this wrong, but from what I understand, the Columbia Basin Trust was set up back in the 60s. And then in the 90s, they constructed 3 dams in Canada and 1 down in the States. In the 90s, now those dams were constructed by BC Hydro, so it's a Crown corporation. So it's the government that stepped in and caused the harm to the environment. In the 90s, they came back with the concept of that was the treaty. The trust is in the 90s. Mm-hmm. They came back in the 90s with the trust to say, we did wrong, and here's how we are going to make up for it and compensate you for the damage that was done to the environment. And then they established the trust with the Columbia Power 50-50 split, everything that's been mentioned in the presentation. But the big difference I see is that was the government setting up the dams in the first place, where this is a private enterprise. And the argument can be said that there's lots of private enterprises or businesses in the community that cause detrimental effects to the environment, whether it's forestry or fishing or anything like this. I could certainly see how an argument could be made that money is taken by the province potentially because of the activities that occur. I mean, right now, the local government only benefits through property taxes, from what I understand. So I could see maybe trying to claw back some money from the province, especially if the province, and I don't know if this is the case, but if the province is benefiting even more from the sale of electricity to foreign entities, then it would make the argument you claw more back for the local government. But I'd just like to hear the delegates' take, I guess, on some of these issues, being a private versus a governmental issue to begin with.
When you look at the history of those dams, those like the Scanlon Dam and the Powell River Dam, is all conditional on supplying power to the mill. So you could argue there's a social license there. There's also the fact that PREI is in a difficult position right now because they are not in compliance with the Utilities Act. And yeah, so it's looking at this as an opportunity for the community rather than looking at the obstacles. So it's going to take some creative thinking. We recognize that there is precedent with a private dam being bought out by BC Hydro. So we're newly formed. We just got alerted to the fact that all of the power in this area was going to be wheeled into the US. And so we're looking at what in this critical moment in time for qathet can be done. So it's going to take some creative thinking. It's going to take not looking at obstacles, but looking at opportunities. And we recognize it might be innovative. And that's what we would hope you'd be able to do.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Director Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank the delegates for coming to us and for really thinking outside the box here. I think the material is really good, and it's really interesting to see because this process is challenging. And I think one of the delegates just mentioned social license. I was thinking about, and maybe my question is to the delegates to provide a bit more thoughts on the elements of social contract that may be broken by what's going on. And the by social contract, what I mean is the water license being contingent on the mill, as was mentioned by Mr. Gentner, and the Section 21 lands having their provisions, exemptions. Those both seem to be elements of a social contract contingent on the mill, which did provide local benefits in terms of jobs. At least that's the contract that is implied there. And by no longer by delinking that, and then that allowing the use of that water for sale, just for selling on the grid, and to use those lands for whatever other non-mill purposes, does seem to maybe break that. So I guess my question, I'll get to my question, which is, are there, can you provide a bit more on that? And do you have evidence that there are written elements to that may be broken if the owners proceed in using those lands and that water for non-mill purposes?
In terms of social license, I think you've articulated it pretty well. So when you look at the water licenses and the amount of water that is under to the benefit of PREI and the lands involved, it's so extensive. And this is all public. So right now, they're not in compliance with the Utilities Act there, as far as I can tell, and this is where having an expert would be great. They don't seem to be in compliance with their water license. And I think BC Hydro has refused to wheel the power to them. So this strikes me as, again, as an opportunity to weigh in there and see if public benefits can be captured from this enormous use of public resources. This is not a private corporation that would exist if not for the public benefits that are being provided.
And if I just may quickly add, it's a complicated topic in that Hydro through power rights buys and sells power. And if you have an inflated rate caused by a new player into the marketing to the United States, it changes rates. Therefore, it goes to the BCUC to delegate. What I'm trying to say is the province and this region and the people here have a lot of leverage right now. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a great future. We're moving from the exploitative resource-based economy, i.e. the mill, and it's served this community well in many ways. Many people would disagree, particularly the First Nations. But we have the opportunity to harness that resource for our own benefit rather than going elsewhere. And like I've said before, the province, through Columbia Power and of course BC Hydro, have purchased private. I mean, you look at trail situation, I'm sure board member Dowd knows this because he's made it very clear that he lived that part of the world many years ago. Comingo Trail was is a smelter that's similar to the situation in Powell River. It isn't producing the same way it used to. It had a private dam and a private facility providing private power for that smelter. The things are changing. It cannot produce like it has. Therefore, it was wanting to sell that power on the grid. Consequently, the government of BC went in and purchased 51%, which is now a benefit to the rest of the community. And that's the model I think we should be aspiring for here in a community that's looking for resilience.
Thank you, Mr. Gentner, for that. Are there any other questions of the delegation? Director Dowd.
No, I'll just have a comment. I'm going to make the same comment I did at the city council, more for the people in this room than for the delegation, because you've heard it all before. But I think if we're going to talk about looking at new ways to benefit from the power that's created by Powell River, by the Lois River and the rivers that feed into it, and maybe by other rivers within the area of the regional district, we need to talk not necessarily to the people like me who came here in the last 10 years, or to the people who came here in the last 150 years, but we need to talk first to the people who've been here for 10,000 years and have impressions and feelings about those rivers and the rights to the benefits of them. And I think that's where we need to begin. And frankly, it's already begun. The process has already begun with an approach from Mayor Formosa to the regional district and to the Klamath people to get together and to try to talk about that jointly. But I just want to make a point that I believe that the First Nations have to be involved in the ground floor of these discussions, or they won't result in anything positive in today's world. And yes, I did grow up in Trail. My great-grandfather worked for Cominco and designed part of the mill, as a matter of fact. My two grandfathers worked there. My dad worked there. My mom worked there. I know what it's like to be in that area. But you know, the Columbia River Treaty also took away a lot of prime hunting areas, and they covered a lot of land.
Is there a question in there?
What I'm going to say is it took a long time for everybody to realize the input and to develop things like the Columbia Treaty and the Columbia Basin Benefit Trust to deal with that. And that's the point, is that this is a long road. Thanks for bringing it up, but I think the First Nations need to be the first people that are involved.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from see Director Gisborne's hand? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. There's been some comments and discussions brought up. Director Brander pointed out something important. Regional districts are funded predominantly from land taxation. Well, hydroelectric generation provides a variety of benefits. From a local government perspective, once the land is flooded for power generation, that land is no longer available for taxation. At a minimum, I would expect that the local community should get a portion of the electrical revenue at a minimum for the amount of land lost for a very basic loss of taxation, because the rest of the community needs to, you know, shore up that loss. So my question to the delegation is that another item worth pursuing with the request for like the funding benefit for the community? Because it seems like there's the ecological, there's the financial. You know, we used to get a whole lot of funding from the mill, but those days are gone. So that's just my thoughts on the matter. Thank you, Chair.
It's a consideration of lost economic opportunities. You've got the dam there, and what's the impact on tourism? And I've heard people express concerns about drift on Lois Lake in terms of the recreational potential. So those are arguments I would hope that qathet would be vigorously putting forward. What are we getting? And what are we losing?
Thank you. Now, are there any further questions? Because if there are, we will have to ask directors for a time extension, if you're willing to.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
I feel a little bit like the Grinch that stole Christmas. However, I submit that we have rather abused our procedure bylaw both on this side of the screen and with respect, perhaps the other side, I think we should move on.
Seeing no hands up, I would like to thank the delegation for your presentation.
Thank you for your patience.
All right.
Happy to join the meeting.
All right. We will thank you. Thank you very much. So we can move back to item 4.1, which is the delegation from Cathy Brown, Texada, the Texada Island Nonprofit Seniors Housing Society. Cathy, are you there? Cathy, are you there?
I'm here, yes.
Here you are.
I'm hoping it shows up properly. I had a little technical trouble earlier.
Great.
Good afternoon to the Honorable Chair, board members of the Committee of the Whole, and QRD staff. My name is Cathy Brown. I'm the president of the Texada Island Nonprofit Seniors Housing Society. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to update the QRD Committee of the Whole today. We've been pretty busy since my last visit to you in 2019. To refresh your memories, TINSHS was formed in 2019 to create housing for low-income seniors on Texada. I don't have to tell you, but right now there's nowhere for our elders to go when they're no longer able to live in their own homes. They're forced off island and away from their support networks or into poverty. I personally know of one senior on Texada who's homeless. She's couch surfing because there's nowhere that she can afford to live, including the trailer park. TINSHS' vision is to build affordable rental housing on the island with integrated services like optional meals, social inclusion activities, and transportation to medical care and other services that are already available in the community. We plan to build sustainably and green. We have taken to heart the honorable member from Lasquiti's words when we last met about sustainability. To forward that, the TINSHS board has been working hard to develop our leadership and organizational capacity. We participated in the OCP process for the most recent Texada Island OCP. We recently received approval from CRA for our federal charitable status. We are hoping that this will bring us closer to being able to apply for larger grants through BC Housing and CMHC. First Credit Union has sponsored us for completing our first official strategic plan. It brings us closer to the clear vision and the strategic priorities that we need to build such a complex project on Texada Island. We've engaged a project consulting firm that specializes in low-income, prefab, beautiful green housing design. That's a lot of adjectives. Green-built housing gives us the capacity to work on feasibility studies so we can narrow down our housing methods and our design. All of this expertise goes back to being able to apply to BC Housing and CMHC. We've hired a part-time fundraiser, and we've been making important relationships in the funding community to further our cause. Our board just completed the BC Nonprofit Housing Association's course called Ready, Set, Build. It's a rigorous training that gives us the blueprint for all the stages of planning, funding, pre-development work, and construction that's ahead of us. These are just a few of our many accomplishments. Our challenges. We've been looking for property for nearly 2 years, or actually for a little over 2 years, and the prices are crazy. Land sales are going fast as more and more people move to Texada from down south in the cities and even from Powell River. To purchase land at market will require a couple years of fundraising. There are no big grants for land purchase, or we can go into significant debt and borrow money before we even build. We've gone to the logging and mining companies, inquiring about gifts of property, but so far nothing's gelled. After lots of GPS research and literally boots on the ground searching, we found another alternative in going after Crown land. We've located a beautiful 10-acre parcel of Crown land that could be ours on application to the province for a 30-year renewable nominal rent tenure. The Honorable Chair and our Director, Sandy McCormick, as well as Mariko of the social planning area, came out to our site for a visit a couple of weeks ago and walked the property that we're interested in. The solution would help us put shovels in the ground as much as 2 years earlier than if we have to purchase a market rate property. The one big hurdle that we have to jump through right now is that the property is outside the Gillies Bay Improvement District until it expands. So we're testing for water resources on the land and advocating for the expansions of the Gillies Bay Improvement District, their area that they cover. If there's no water on the land and there's no promise of the water service being extended, there'd be no project on this particular Crown land site, and we'll be back to looking for a market rate land purchase. We've met our first big hurdle. It's exciting and discouraging at the same time. So I'm very happy to report all of our good news and to share our challenges. We see that the QRD is a good friend and a partner in creating housing resources in Area D on Texada Island. I don't really have any questions other than perhaps if the RD could encourage us or direct us as how we could advocate for the water extension for the Gillies Bay Improvement District. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cathy. And yes, it was a real eye-opener going for that walk with you and Mariko and seeing the piece of property that you have your eye on. It's a beautiful piece and would make a fabulous site for what you're trying to build. I will open it up to questions from directors. Are there questions? I'm looking for hands going up. All right, I'm not seeing any hands going. Oh, now I am. Okay, Director Leishman and then Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. I guess, yeah, my question would be similar to the delegates in terms of what, I don't really know what's involved in the water district, an extension, a boundary extension. So I wonder how we would find out what the next steps would be to advocate for something like that.
Well, I can take a stab at that and say that it is outside the regional district's jurisdiction. It is within the jurisdiction of the Gillies Bay Improvement District. And I believe there is a process with the province that they have to go through to expand their boundaries. Whether they will be given permission to expand their boundaries, I can't say, but that is really outside of our domain to make those decisions. So that is between the regional district and the improvement district and the provincial government. Does that answer your question, Director Leishman?
Yes, thanks, Chair.
Okay, Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. My understanding is Gillies Bay came and requested some grant funding for upgrades to their system as well as potential expansion of their service area. I guess my question is more for staff. If the Gillies Bay Improvement District are looking to expand their boundaries and they're needing grant funding in order to provide the water service to the property in question, could that potentially affect their application for community works funding to this board so that we might be able to, provide some of the community works funds to help them expand that service area if they get permission from the province?
I'll turn that over to our CAO, Mr. Radke.
Through the chair, I think the same considerations would be in play, and the board would be able to deliberate over the benefits and what the positives of that might be. So I think it's solely a board discussion and debate.
Thank you. I have Director Brabazon, then Director Fall.
Once again, Chair, we have a delegation and we have 5 minutes to ask questions of the delegate for clarification. Once more, we are straying far beyond the procedure bylaw. I suggest you wrap it up.
Thank you, Director Ravazan, for that reminder. Director Powell, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Chair. So, as I understand, I mean, one option is to try to apply for water from GBID, and the other is on-site water. And on the Leitch Health Center with some cabins has their own water system, and they found it necessary to work, and they've had some challenges working with Vancouver Island Health. So my question is, if you go down that road, have you already reached out and started building a relationship with Vancouver Coastal Health in terms of the requirements and approvals that might be needed through VCH to allow water use for a fair-sized project using local, water sources on the property?
No, we are going to approach them once we determine if it's a viable property. We understand that from the improvement district, they require Vancouver Coastal Health standards. So we know this is something we would have to meet. We are in the process we've just got a consultant that is helping us formulate that information, that exchange with Vancouver Coastal Health. So this is in the works to have that conversation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. It's very, it's a good project, I think.
Thank you.
Thanks, Director Paul. Are there any other questions? All right, seeing no hands. Cathy, thank you very much for being here. We have certainly heard your message loud and clear, and I know we'll be hearing from you again. Thank you
kindly.
Okay, directors, that concludes the delegation portion. Are there any unregistered delegations?
I have not received any notification, Chair.
Okay, thank you. No unfinished business. So we are on to correspondence 6.1 from Patricia Martin regarding creating the trust. And I believe this pertains to the delegation's presentation. Receipt has been moved, seconded by Director Brander. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. 6.2 from Christine Ferris and Deb Hopwood regarding the endorsement of Bill 216.
I'll move receipt.
Receipt has been moved, seconded by Director Gisborne. Discussion? Director Fall.
I just have a comment that we did send a letter that was in the minutes that we just adopted at our board meeting, and it's we did this last month in response to a letter from the village of Cumberland. So I will contact these Leitch residents and thank them. They've already contacted me, so they will be happy.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Item 6.3 from Mike Morden, City of Maple Ridge regarding vaccine restrictions to letter to Minister Dix. Would someone like to propose a motion? Director Gisborne?
Move receipt.
Move receipt, seconded by Director Leishman. Thank you. Discussion? Director Gisborne?
I presume we've all heard the announcement today from the Ministry of Health, so I don't think we need to send any letter, as they've already outlined their timeline for lifting of restrictions. I believe the mask mandate ends tonight, and April the 8th is apparently when the vaccine card requirement is then lifted. So I don't think we need to do anything other than receipt. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. Further discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, we are now on to 6.4, letter from Minister Heyman regarding the boat launch at Salisbury Bay Provincial Park. Director Brander.
Move receipt.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Gisborne. Discussion? Director Brander.
I guess I'm a bit confused by the letter. I hope that they actually do come forward and have BC Parks check it out for safety and maintenance.
Well, that's what they said in the letter, that they would.
That's what they said. They also said about unauthorized commercial and industrial vessels, and I don't know where that came from, but.
Well, I don't know either. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Correspondence is 6.5, correspondence from Chris Leavum, the Arctic Fire Safety President regarding contract fire services.
Move receipt.
Receipt has been moved. Thank you, Director Brabazon. Director Gisborne, second. Discussion. Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Item 6.6 from Tara Faganello, Ministry of Municipal Affairs regarding the Lund Water Works District Receiver appointment.
I'll move receipt.
Receipt has been moved. Director Brabazon, Director Brander. Discussion. Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. 6.7, I believe this was the item, Director Leishman, that you said you had a conflict in?
Yes, Chair, I will declare a conflict because this is related to a development that my employer is doing. So I will get put into the waiting room, please.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us know.
Just 1 second.
He's gone.
She's gone. Okay, soon to be back. All right, 6.7 is correspondence from Jason Gow, City of Powell River, regarding the notice of public consultation. I guess a question that could be asked is, do we wish to respond to it? Director, no.
Move receipt.
Receipt is from Director Brander, second. Discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. All right, shall we get Director Leishman back? Here you are. Okay, 6.8 from Dave and Mark Hodgins regarding improvements, accessibility improvements at Haywire Bay.
Move receipt.
Director Gisborne has moved receipt. Director Brander has seconded. Discussion. Director Gisborne.
I'd just like to thank the staff, particularly Patrick Devereaux, for the work done at Haywire Bay. As they said, sometimes it seems like it's not a big deal for most of us, but for those that are confined to wheelchairs, it is a big deal. And I would like to thank Dave and Mark Hodgins for their continued efforts and advocacy in this regard. So happy to receive it and hope more like this is in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. It's certainly a good news result. Further discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. 6.9 from UBCM regarding the resolution that was referred to the UBCM executive.
Receipt.
Receipt has been moved. Director Gisborne, seconded by Director Brander. Discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. 6.10 from Rebecca Bishop, the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund Program Officer. What is your pleasure with this item?
Move receipt. Good news.
Receipt, yeah. It's been moved. Director Brabazon, seconded by Director Leishman. Thank you. Discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. 6.11 from Justice Natia Iyer, BC Electoral Boundaries Commission Chair, regarding our opportunity to express views on a commission boundary change. What is your view? What is your pleasure with this?
I'll move receipt.
Director Brabazon, receipt, seconded by Director Gisborne. Discussion. Director Brabazon.
One comment, Chair. Both federally and provincially, this community is an orphan when it comes to electoral boundaries. They will stick us with this, combine us there, or they'll combine us here, or they'll combine us. At one point, I remember this provincial riding actually went over the mountains into the interior. So I don't see any reason for us to get way in. We'll be told where we belong when it's all over.
Thank you, Director Brabazon. Further discussion on this item? Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we're in the right place provincially. I'm not so sure about federally. Anyway, okay, so all in favor of receipt? Any opposed? Carried. We have one more piece of correspondence from Corinne Bailey, Powell River Gymnastics, and her request for a recommendation letter.
Chair,
Directly,
could I move that we send a letter of support to the gymnastics?
you certainly can, seconded by Director
Second.
Gitmore. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing no hands, good decision, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. That brings us on to reports. 7.1, the Resource Recovery Center Educational Signage Grant Application. Certainly sounds like good news. What is your pleasure with this item? Did you have a presentation? No? No? Okay. All right. Director Brabazon.
I'll move the recommendation.
The recommendation has been moved. Director Leishman seconds it. Discussion? Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. This is, I think, a really good opportunity, and I want to thank Ms. Howie and Mr. Clennon. And I guess I have one question for them, just because the signs are great, and I think showing past, present, and future is a fantastic educational opportunity. But it may be limited to people who go to the site. So I just want to. So the question would be: Is there any thoughts about taking that information and also making some resources on our webpage or something that might include that as well, so that people, for example, from Lasqueti Island, who aren't likely to go to the Resource Recovery Center very often, might be able to see this kind of information and have an opportunity to look at it.
Good question. Ms. Howie?
Thank you. Through the chair, if I may, I'll turn that over to Abby to respond.
Thanks to the chair. Sorry, got some background. I think one idea with this to expand the sign coverage to folks that aren't going to be at the site would be through the videography. Some of the work that we've currently done, I think a lot of what we're going to signage is going to be covered through a video update, so it would be able to be viewed that way.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Further questions or comments on this item? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. There is no new business, so we are on to question period. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any questions of this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Galinsky. There is an in-camera session. Who would like to read the in-camera motion?
I'll give it a try.
Right, is one, go ahead.
I move that the committee move in camera and that the meeting be closed to the public on the grounds that the subject matter to be considered relates to matters covered by the community charter under section 91C, labor relations or other employee relations, G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the regional district, I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a regional district service that are at their preliminary stages, and that, in the view of the committee, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the regional district if they were held in public, and N, the consideration of whether a committee meeting should be closed under a provision of this subsection or subsection 2.
Thank you very much. Seconded by Director Leishman. Discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We are going in camera.
Thank you, Chair. We're in open session.
Well, thank you for coming back to us at Committee of the Whole. There is no rise in report, so our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good night.